All right, we are live.
Hey.
Woo, woo, woo. Awesome. So we'll wait a little bit for a couple people to hop on. And like always, I don't want to keep this running too long. It will be probably about 30 minutes, and we'll have everything going on during that.
Awesome.
Yeah. And if you come on, just announce yourself and say, hey. We got Liz from London. So I'm so excited that she was able to jump on with us. And the time difference, it's actually 7:30 at night, your time, right?
It is, yeah. I
That's
feel like I've had a full day so far.
It's a great way to end it. A nice talk about travel and some other topics.
Yeah, just life. It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll wait like a couple more minutes and then we'll get started. How is the weather in London right now?
It's been crazy hot, so there's like an insane heat wave everywhere. And I was in New York right before I came to London, like at the beginning of July, and it was crazy stupid hot there, and it was insane. But at least like in North America, you have air conditioning pretty much everywhere. So even if you're hot out on the street, you go into any shop or anything, and you're like, oh, cold air, it's great. But it's been like early 30s or low 30s, sorry, which I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. I don't know, but it's really hot. Yeah, it's been pretty crazy, and luckily we just got some rain in the past few days that have kind of helped cool it down, and it's now sort of in the low 20s, and that's much better. But again, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, so.
I'm gonna just go with it and say that that's probably really hot. I'm not converting it either. What's up, Tiffany? Welcome.
Hi, Tiffany.
This is Liz. She's telling us it's like there's a huge heat wave going on in London right now. Apparently, there's one up in LA. Like there's a huge heat wave up in LA too.
Yeah.
It hasn't really been too hot here in like an hour south, but it's been good.
Yeah, so you're close to San Diego then?
I'm right in the middle, actually. I'm in Orange County, so I'm right by Laguna Beach.
Perfect.
Oh, it's 104 Fahrenheit here. So that's hot. Yeah.
Oh
It's hot in London. Wow. I don't even know it got hot in London.
It doesn't. That's the thing, is it doesn't really get that hot here. And so for it to be this warm is very abnormal. Like it's such a, people are trying to wrap their minds around it. And there's just not air conditioning the same way there is. Like houses don't really have it. Shops don't have it. It's rare to go anywhere and have air conditioning. So it's just brutal.
You make me appreciate America that much more. But we'll go ahead and get started, and we'll talk about why you are in London right now. So go ahead and give us a little background about you, your story, how you got to London.
Yeah, for sure. So I am a single parent, which we'll get into a bit more later. And I was working at a corporate job for several years and really focusing on my career life and all that hustle everybody talks about and whatever. And my kids were getting older, and I just realized I was missing a lot of their life and some really important years with them. And, I was really getting all my good hours of day to my job, and my kids got like tired and exhausted and frustrated mom. And I just kind of realized it wasn't really fair to them, and I had to do some rebalancing of priorities. So I quit my job and decided I was going to start working for myself and just freelancing. And that was a really scary decision, but an important one that had to be made. And my kids had been begging me for a long time to do homeschooling. And so I said, yep, let's try that. We'll do it for a season and see how that feels for us. And, just a combination of those two things, homeschooling them and working for myself online, I kind of realized like I can do this anywhere in the world. We don't have to do it where we live in Vancouver, Canada. It's something we can take on the road. So why not move around a little bit? So we have family in England, and I just kind of decided, why don't we go there? Why don't we try living in London for like 6 months and see what that's like? And now we're here now, and we got here 3 weeks ago. And we've kind of been hopping around in London. Like, we were in a hostel and now we're house sitting. And we've had another change of plans. We've decided we're not going to stay in London for 6 months. We're going to hop all around the UK instead and be like, we're going to another town a little bit more north in England. We're going to stay there for a month. We're going to go to Scotland for a month. We're going to go to Ireland for a month. Like, we're just going to move around instead and not just stay put here and just experience more. And then we're going to go to France for a while and then do little visits to Greece and Italy. And
oh my gosh, I love it. That's so awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So I know this isn't like our forever plan, but it's our for now plan. And we'll see how we feel at the end of this. And when we go back home, what we feel like we want to do next.
That's awesome. That's all what life is all about, the for now plan. That's amazing. I love that. That gets me so excited.
And my kids, they're getting older. Like, my son is 10, my daughter's 8. And so my son is in his preteen years now. And I'm realizing, like, the amount of time he's going to want to be spending with me, and that he really cares about, making memories with me and having FaceTime with me. And the years when he thinks I'm still cool and that I still have important things to say, like, they're really short. And I need to seize this time when I have it and just really zone in on my parenting and my intentional time with them and build some really strong years before things, before they're adults and I've sort of lost my good years. So
I love it. You're like my kindred spirit. That's amazing. Awesome. Cool. So then I know you said you just moved to London 3 weeks ago. How did that go? Like, what kind of traveling with your 2 kids? Obviously, they're a little older, so it's kind of easier. They know how to act on a plane, but they still.
No, age is a huge factor. I had someone ask me a couple weeks ago, would you have done this big move kids when they were younger? And I just said, no way, not as a single parent anyway. Like, I rely on the fact that they're old enough to help me pack suitcases and carry our luggage through train terminals and airports and whatever. And they do know how to behave on airplanes. And I feel like they're old enough to have some independence, and that creates a lot of peace of mind for me, that I know they can handle each stage that we're at, and I don't have to carry them through it as much. They're old enough to experience it, and they're old enough to really be on board with what's happening, and I'm not just kind of dragging them through this experience. So yeah, age is a big factor, but it was really hard when we got here. I had several days at the beginning where I just cried and I missed my parents and I missed my home, and it was really hard, actually, and I didn't anticipate that. So I feel like we're a little more settled and feeling peaceful about it now, especially now that we've decided to move around a bit more. It's going to feel less obviously isolating, we won't really notice our lack of community here as much if we're constantly moving. So yeah.
That's awesome. That's really cool. I know, like, if I even tried, I could make it happen, but if I did it with Michael right now, like I was telling you earlier, he poured his juice all over the kitchen and he was butt naked when he did this because he escaped from me changing his diaper. So as I'm cleaning up his diaper, he went and poured all of his juice on the kitchen floor, and then as he's butt naked, made juice angels, like a snow angel, all over the floor. So that on an airplane, no. Yeah. But I guess some great tips if, I know, like, I travel with Mike a lot. I have my own tips. But from you, what would you suggest, or what has made such a great impact on, like, the must-dos for traveling with kids? Like, things that, keep them entertained, things that'll help, avoid confrontation and tantrums and stuff like that, which are pretty unavoidable, but things that can assist in getting over those humps.
For sure, yeah. So I would say the biggest adjustment for me mentally is to keep in mind that this is not an adult's trip. This is not like when you go to Vegas with your girlfriends, or I went to Italy with my sister for 10 days 2 years ago and it was just the two of us. That was an adults trip. And we did things that adults can appreciate. And we had long days, and knowing to set your focus instead on creating a child-friendly experience. So if your kid is still needing naps, you can't be out of the house from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. nonstop. Like, they're going to go absolutely crazy. So break it up, give them some downtime, and sort of set the expectations aside that you have to do everything and see everything. Because when you add children into the mix, it makes things much more unpredictable. And a kid might just have like a bad day. Like, my son's had a few of those where he's just feeling out of sorts and frustrated. And so I'm like, you know what? We're going to have to not do two of the things I wanted to do today because frankly, you're cranky and grumpy and I don't really want to be out in public with you.
That's great advice. That's so true. Whenever, yeah, like you have your own agenda as an adult, but your children have their own agenda too. And that's great advice. I love that.
And just even the things like, you know, you go to a city like Paris, for instance, and you're like, oh, I want to go to the Louvre and see all the art. Well, does your kid really want to spend 6 hours looking in a museum? Like, no, why? So mix in some kid-friendly things. And, you know, London is a big city for theater, and I'm a huge theater person. I studied it in university. Like, it's my love. But I know, like, I'm not taking my kids to see Book of Mormon. Like, that's not happening. So we're like, okay, well, we'll see Madagascar, the musical, and we'll see Aladdin and Matilda. And they're still like phenomenal productions, but it's, again, like oriented towards children. So you just got to wrap your mind around it and be okay with it.
That's awesome. I love all of that. And so what are some things you would say not to do and completely try to avoid doing when traveling? Like mistakes that you've learned, like, you know, things that you've done and like learned from, like, okay, I'm not doing that.
Ever again. When you have kids in the mix, especially if you're a single parent, paperwork. Bring all the paperwork you can think of. When I've been crossing borders, I've been stopped so many times if I didn't have paperwork that said I can travel with my kids freely, because they assume I'm like a mother running away with her children or something, and I'm like, no, trust me, I can do this. Yeah, when we came into London actually 3 weeks ago, we didn't have a return ticket booked for when we leave England in 6 months. So we just had a one-way ticket. And I think that was a big factor why we got really badly grilled at the border. And we were actually detained for over an hour while they were like verifying some facts on us. And like we were putting this in this holding area. And it was the scariest and most anxious experience I've had. Because I was like, they could just say no. Like they could tell us to leave the country and that we have to get on a plane and go back home right now. And that would be devastating. So just really ticking all your boxes, even more so than you would if you were just traveling on your own as an adult, because with kids in the mix, like it just makes it that much more stressful. And you know what? Embrace the screens. I'm sorry. All the people that are like, no, screen time is killing our children, blah, blah, blah. No, bring an iPad on the airplane and don't feel an ounce of guilt about it. Give them your phone to play Candy Crush if you're on a 2-hour train ride. They're not going to stare out the window and look at clouds. Like, I'm sorry, but just have realistic expectations for your children and be okay not being your most perfect Pinterest parent in those tense traveling moments.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree with that. I know Michael's not really into the screen time right now. He's a very active, hands-on baby, but I can tell you one mistake we learned from: never forget the bottle. This last trip that we went on, we were flying to Texas for his birthday, and we forgot his bottle. Well, I didn't forget it. I packed it in the carry-on suitcase, but we were last to get on the flight just because of a whole other, it was a travel nightmare. LAX, if you can avoid it at all costs, avoid it at all costs.
The worst airport.
Yeah. And so we're the last to get on. They're like, oh, you need to check your carry-on bag. And we're rushing, so we don't even think about it. I checked it. I get in the seat, and Kevin's like, all right, give me the bottle. And I'm like, it's in the carry-on. And we're like, no. So we're trying to like figure out what we can do. We have a sippy cup and we're trying to put formula. This is when he was still on formula. So we're trying to like give him formula like through a sippy cup, and he's just not having it. He wants his bottle. It was bedtime. So it was like ready for his bedtime bottle. And I mean, he was just an absolute like crying, just tearing, like just horrible. So like my top advice is always make sure there's a bottle in the diaper bag. That was a mom mistake. I put it in the carry-on. And it was like, it'll be with us. It's in the carry-on. And it wasn't in the diaper bag. So I feel like just from that mistake alone, like that was huge. Like that was a 3.5 hour flight of nonstop, like, I want to play, I want to run, I want to do this, I want my bottle, I want to go to sleep, just wah, wah, wah kind of thing. And he's not into the screens yet. So it was just, even the steward, the flight attendants were like bringing us bananas and sandwiches and like, here, let's help, like, let's get this kid, because everyone's trying to sleep around us. So
Yeah.
I will take full advice on the screen time once he gets a little older and can really actually sit down and watch a show.
Totally.
And then, as you're saying, traveling solo with your kids, how is that? Like, I haven't experienced it yet. I'm terrified of traveling alone with Michael just because he's a total nut. And so what's some advice you go on, like, as a mom, traveling by yourself with your kids?
If you can find a way to book your own bed, so you're not sharing beds with your kids all the time, that's probably easier and might give you a little bit of sanity. As it stands, my daughter sleeps in my bed every night anyway. Even if she goes to bed in her bed, she'll come into my bed soon enough. So it's a bit hopeless, but I would love it if I had my own bed all the time. And it's lonely, honestly, it is. And even though my kids are older and we can have full conversations and whatever, it's not the adult interaction that we crave, frankly, and they can't provide the same kind of support for me because they're my kids and they're not meant to do that. So I guess mentally preparing yourself that it's going to be lonely and feel a little bit isolated. And if you have really strong connections with people at home, like I've had a lot of phone calls with my parents, and I had a phone call last night over an hour with my brother that was really nice. And just maintaining those kind of adult connection points, and also find time to do things for you. Like I went to Disneyland with my kids last year, and that was a very kid-focused trip. Obviously, Disneyland, even though I loved it. And there was at one point, like the movie La La Land had just come out, and it was like such a big thing and whatever. And I'm like, I really want to see this movie. And you know what? I took my kids to the movie theater with me, and I said, all day, every day has been about what you want and what will make this trip special for you. And these 2 hours are going to be for mom. And you're going to sit in the theater quietly, and you're going to be present, and you're going to be part of it, and you're not going to bug me. And tomorrow we're going to go back to doing what you want to do at Disneyland. But I get these 2 hours. And they're like, yeah, sure. And they were great. So find a way to give yourself some kind of adult mental stimulation, or you'll go crazy.
Yes, I can, as a stay-at-home mom in a new town that I don't know anybody, I 100% agree on the isolation and feeling of that. I can completely relate to that. And going into that, you did say, that you are widowed and you lost your husband 6 years ago. So tell us kind of the story about that. What was the process of going through that with your kids and, explaining to them what happened? Just give us that story.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he was killed in a car accident almost 6 years ago, and we got married very, very young and had kids very young. So he was like 23 when he died. And we'd been married 5 years, and we had 2 toddlers, and it was just, when you're in your teen years and your early 20s, you have this sense of invincibility, like all these bad things that happen in the world are never going to happen to you, and you're just very protected and whatever. And that's wrong, obviously. And just to have the incredible shock of such a sudden and traumatic death of my husband and my kid's dad and everything was very shattering for me. And I'd really built my identity into being a mom, a wife. And then when you take me out of the picture, I just felt really lost. Like I didn't know who I was anymore. And it was, yeah, I mean, the day after he died, when I told my kids that they were never going to see their dad again and that he was gone. And like my daughter was almost 3, my son was 4. It just, I feel like they had a loss of innocence that day. And I just have never felt so heartbroken for having to really introduce death into the pure and innocent life of children. And it sucked. Like, there's no better word for it. It was the absolute worst. And I feel like probably for 2 years after his death, I just was kind of a shell of myself. Like I didn't, I just didn't really feel joy the same way. And I just felt dark, depressed. And my son especially was really affected by it. And he was quite depressed for a while. And that's heartbreaking to go through with your child. And it was the actual worst, honestly. But we have come through it, and we've really formed a core team of the 3 of us. Like I call it a tricycle, because I have like the wheel at the front that's like leading the family, but you have the balance and stability of those back 2 wheels that are coming along for the ride. And it works. And we've created this team, and I think we're that much stronger for it. And that sort of barrier between parent and child, when you have 2 parents and it's kind of like teams, like you've got the parents and the kids and whatever, that was sort of broken at that time. And I wouldn't say that they had to grow up faster or anything, or that they felt any responsibility to take care of me or any of that stuff. Like, they were far too little for that. But it did kind of form a really intense bond that's like that you have when you go through something awful with other people, and it brings you that much closer together. So yeah, but I feel like, again, I was, a single parent and felt like I just had to do what I had to do for us to survive and get by. And so, I went into the full-time work and gave it my heart and soul and whatever. And at a certain point I had to say, okay, but this isn't what's best for my family, and I'm all that they have. So if they're not getting the best of me, they're not getting anything from a parent. So it was a really important reprioritization, if that's a word. To kind of to make us better. And yeah.
That's awesome. And so for any moms, I mean, that's so heartbreaking. I couldn't even imagine going through that. Oh, I didn't even want to think about it. I'll start crying. You're so strong. But for any parents who are like moms, that like maybe they're single, or maybe they're just going through becoming a widow, what advice would you give for them?
It's so hard, no matter what your circumstances are, that you're a parent, whether you're a parent from the start or you become it later on. Have so much grace for yourself that it is to be terrible. And it may be a really, really long time before it's okay again. And just for a long time, I really bucked up against when people would say I'm so brave or so strong or whatever. I'm like, no, I'm falling apart. Like I'm losing my mind every day. Like, that doesn't feel like I'm being strong at all. And just know that it's okay to have grace for yourself and to fall apart and to not be okay. And as much as you always want to be okay for your kids, my kids have seen me fall apart, and they know it's okay for them to fall apart too. And that they're feeling this just as much as I am, and they're feeling the loss of a parent in a different way than I'm feeling the loss of a spouse. But we're all devastated, and it's okay to be in really dark, sorrowful time, and find the people who will journey with you through that, and not try and tell you that it's okay, or not try and tell you that God has a plan or something that you really don't want to hear in those moments. Find the people that will sit with you while you cry and not try and make you feel better. Find those people, because they will stick with you, and they're the good ones.
That's really great advice. Yeah. Oh, I can't even imagine. I don't want to. But yeah, I mean, that's really, I mean, yeah, I probably couldn't have said that better myself. I absolutely agree with you. Those are the people who are going to stick with you. And as hard as it is to go through something like that and go through that journey, like you're now, like, look at what you're doing now, though. Like, you have this tricycle and you're leading your kids and you're getting to explore the world with your kids.
Yeah, and we're in such a better place. And, you know, my kids still desperately miss their dad and feel the void of him in our family. But we are just trying to live our best lives with the time that we have here and the time we have with each other, because we know that nothing is guaranteed, and we want to take hold of these moments and say, okay, we're gonna be much more intentional with how we spend our time and the relationships we're in with each other. And I think that was just an important turning point for us. But again, it took 6 years for me to really recognize those things. So it's a journey, and no one's going to get it perfect right away. So
Yeah, absolutely. Live your best life today, because tomorrow's never guaranteed. Tomorrow, the next minute's not guaranteed. um, yeah, that's definitely a great reminder too, and something that you're really instilling in your kids too, which is awesome. I love that. Um, well, any other advice or tips that you would give to the moms on traveling or, going through things alone?
it's such a cliche, but like, if you can find your village, you'll do much better. And your village doesn't just have to be a bunch of moms that are doing the same things that you are, feeling the same way that you are. My village is made up of family and friends and past coworkers and, you know, friends who don't have children, family members who don't have children and don't know what it's like to be a mom, but know me and love me and champion the decisions I'm making in my life. And that's how you succeed, is by having other positive people around you and really just having so much grace for yourself. We live in a really painful world of Instagram, frankly, that is all about the highlight reel and, you know, just posting about your best days and, you know, your prettiest pictures and whatever. And life is messy and gruesome and like, it's terrible sometimes. And it's totally okay to feel those things, and surround yourself with people who also know that it's okay to feel those things and will walk with you through those days. And don't just be with the people that are here for your Instagram. Be around the people that are here for your brokenheartedness and your sorrow and the days when you scream at your kids and then feel terrible about it and whatever. Like, just be with people who are real and willing to be real with you.
I love it. That's great advice. Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Oh, that was a lot of really great information. I feel like that information, you see so many different how-to things on the traveling and what to expect, but I never have heard anyone say the tips that you gave today on incorporating the kids' time and the difference between, because I feel like a lot of people, don't know how to incorporate the two different things. So that was a really great topic of, adult trips with or traveling with your kids. So that was a great topic as well. And, on the tips on just going through the journey of becoming a widow and that everything, the turmoil and everything that brings up and that you go through. That's not an easy situation ever. And, thank you so much for sharing that and sharing your story, sharing your journey. I appreciate it so much for coming on today.
Thank you so much for having me here. It was great to be with you here on this platform, sharing a bit of my heart and things with you.
Absolutely. I look forward to hopefully collabing with you in the future, and we'll get you on maybe see some like London holiday stuff. That would be so cool.
Awesome.
Or you're traveling though all across, so maybe wherever you're at, I highly recommend Germany during Christmas.
We won't be there Christmas, but we will be there after Christmas. In a couple months after that, we're going to see some family there too. So
awesome. That'll be really cool. I'm excited to follow your journey, and you all can follow her journey as well. I have all of the links in the descriptions below, her blog, her Instagram, and your Facebook. So if there's any of the links, just let me know and I'll add them to the description. But thank you everybody so much for joining us, and I look forward to talking next week. I'll have the event up next Sunday, so stay tuned for that. And Liz, again, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Have a great evening in London. Try to stay cool. All right, bye.
Bye.